My name's Dave Dubeau, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubeau. And have you ever wondered how to build a thriving real estate portfolio without using traditional bank loans? Today, my guest, Sasha Torchigina, she's going to correct me, but from Connecticut, which is important, is here to shed some light on her journey to real estate success through seller financing and private money. Sasha, welcome to the show, and I apologize for the last name. I've never seen that one before in my life.
That's okay. You were closer than most people. Sasha Torchigina, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So how did you get started? We're going to touch on the seller finance side of things, but how did you get started in your real estate journey?
Yeah, sure. So my first job out of college was just for a small property management company right down the street from my house. It was these two brothers that had been buying just small multifamilies in town since like the 90s, and they'd got a good amount between the two of them. Eventually, they kind of moved into real estate full time and opened a property management company, and are just managing other people's small multifamily in town. And I was their first employee ever, and this was my first job ever. So it was kind of a learning experience for everyone. But I quickly saw what they were doing and what their clients were doing, and I realized the power of real estate and wanted to do it myself. But at the time, I had a part-time hourly job for a small property management company and my real estate license under them, where I had like just started making commissions. So no one was going to give me a mortgage. So I had to get creative and kind of figure out other avenues to invest in real estate without going through a bank. So I discovered seller financing. I don't remember how I came across it, but I did, and it revolutionized my life. Like just this idea that you could buy real estate without going through a bank and having a W-2 job and all sorts of proof that you actually have income. So for like maybe the next like 9 months or so, I was reaching out to everyone that had an off-market property, whether it was online, whether it was just driving by like for sale by owner signs, anything I could find off market. I was just reaching out to them, seeing if someone would finance something. And I was getting so many no's in a row. Everyone I knew was just like, you are wasting your time. You're wasting everyone else's time. Like, go get a normal job if you want to buy a house. But 9 months in, I finally got my first yes. And everything from there on changed and just started to snowball.
Awesome. So seller financing can be kind of tricky because, like you said, there's lots of houses to buy, but there's not a lot of those houses to buy. There's a smaller subset of people with paid off mortgages or people who can do the seller financing. And even when you find those people, you have to educate them on what seller financing even is. So how has that kind of shaped the journey since you got that first strike?
Yeah, so I think I got really lucky on my first deal. The guy who I bought this first property from actually had a lot more experience than I did. He was a retired doctor and a private lender, and he already had a bunch of mortgages out there. So my first email to him was like, oh, would you consider any sort of creative financing? His response was, seller financing is always an option, and I have other opportunities too. So even though that first property I went out to see was not going to work in any way, shape, or form, the only reason I really went out, even though I knew that this house sucked, was because he had said that he has other opportunities and seller financing is always an option. So I knew that something could be done there. So he really kind of took the reins on the first deal, and he was the one who set the terms and was like, this is what I offer for seller financing deals. There wasn't really much negotiation. It was honestly kind of more similar to going to a bank where like, this is the product, take it or leave it. But I just like, it was more flexible in the sense that like I didn't need to provide a bunch of pay stubs and W-2s and whatnot. Like he was already comfortable with me. He knew what he was doing and what he was getting into, and he was perfectly happy with the arrangement as long as I would agree to his terms.
Yeah.
So that first deal,
right. Yeah.
So it was really helpful having that first one where he kind of guided me through, and then I was able to take that knowledge. Actually, my first two properties I bought from him, so he guided me through the first two, and then I was able to take that and apply it to sellers in the future and lead them through that. So I've worked with sellers before that were very hesitant even if they knew what it was, they were just like not interested. Nope. Or people who didn't know what it was, and then I kind of guided them through it, and I had these examples to show them now, like, look, I've already done this. Feel free to reach out to these references. Everyone's really happy with this arrangement. I have 100% on-time payment history. I can show you exactly how we set this up, and I'm very flexible too. If you're looking for a balloon or you're looking for a higher interest rate you can get elsewhere, we can definitely arrange that. So one of the great things about seller financing too is that there are no rules. It's really whatever you and the seller can agree to, unlike a bank where you go and they tell you these are your options. There's a lot more freedom with seller financing, and it's just whatever arrangements that you and the seller can both come to that you are happy with. And like you mentioned with the paid off houses, generally traditional seller financing only works when someone has a paid off house, but there are other ways to do it as well, like subject to and whatnot, where people still have a mortgage. That gets more complicated. I haven't done many of those deals. Most of what I do is just traditional seller financing with paid off houses, but there are ways to do it if the house isn't paid off.
Yeah, there's it's like you said, you nailed it. It's whatever you can negotiate pretty much is, it's all a paperwork. It's all about terms when it comes to seller financing. So when you're trying to identify suitable properties for seller financing, what sort of criteria is important to you?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I like to ask if the home is paid off. And if it is, that's already a good first step. And I ask kind of what their plans are for this lump sum of money. Because a lot of people either inherited this house and just kind of don't want to deal with it anymore, but don't have any real plans for the money. They just don't want to be landlords. Or people are just sick of their tenants, but don't really know what else they're going to do with the money. A lot of people like having the stable monthly income. Their qualms are just like tenants and maintenance and vacancies. So I present it in a way that, like, oh, I can still give you this stable monthly income. I may even be able to give you more than what you're making now. And I'm going to be the one dealing with the tenants and the vacancies and all the repairs and whatnot. Because a lot of these properties are also, kind of deferred maintenance with below market rents. So I'm able to pay them more than they're making with these below market rents, get into the property for a great deal, raise the rents, do some maintenance. I'm cash flowing. The seller is cash flowing better than they were before. They get rid of their headache and everyone's happy.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's really nice about seller finance is it's a solution for landlords a lot of the time in the sense that they're maybe tired, but they don't want to give up the money. They don't want to give up the property. They want to still get some residuals for some term, 2, 5 years, 10 years. So when you're negotiating those terms, is there a deal that, is there something that could be too long or too short? What does that look like for you when you're looking for deals?
So, I mean, I try to extend the amortization or the balloon as far out as I possibly can, because that's the best case scenario for me if I don't have to worry about refinancing anytime soon. But if the
Mhm.
deal can only work with a short balloon, then I can still work with that. I just have to structure it a little differently. Like, I try to make sure to build in a decent amount of equity so that if worse comes to worse and I do have to refinance very soon, that I'm still able to do that without bringing too much money to the table.
So when we're looking at it, it says here that you're investing also out of state. So are you now going national or just in that sort of East Coast? What does it look like for your strategies moving forward?
Yeah, so far I'm really only in like the Northeast. So I'm located in central Connecticut, and I kind of just invest within Connecticut mostly, but also in the states surrounding Connecticut. And so I've kind
Mhm.
of just been broadening my reach a little just because the Connecticut market has gotten so crazy lately. I don't know if any of your listeners have noticed, but apparently Hartford, Connecticut has been Zillow's top market for the past 2 years, which was like very strange to me. Nobody comes to Hartford, Connecticut. But
Yeah.
apparently people are coming to Hartford, Connecticut now. So prices have just skyrocketed during COVID. We were at like 0% growth from like 2000, I think like 10 through 19. And it's just been exponential the past like 4 years. So I've had to kind of branch out into other markets. And I found that like markets that are within like 2, 3, 4 hour drive, I can get much better returns for like half the cost of what properties are going for in Connecticut. So I have kind of like a mixed portfolio right now. The stuff in Connecticut, I think, definitely appreciates better, but doesn't cash flow quite as well. But it's definitely higher in demand, higher to buy. Like, if you can get your hands on it, it's definitely worth it. But
Mhm.
the cash flow is much better out of state.
Yeah, then that happens when you see a bunch of immigration going on. Who knows? Maybe they're like Zoom migrators, remote workers, right? They just want like
Yeah.
less of a big city thing. 'Cause how many people live in the greater Hartford area?
That's a great question. I would,
If you
my
had to
guess
guess.
is maybe, I know Connecticut's like 3 million. So I'd say somewhere between half a million to a million in the greater Hartford area.
Yeah, so maybe we've got some like Zoom migrators. Now, when you're
Yeah,
running
definitely.
multiple, when we're running multiple real estate ventures, like all the sub twos and managing those as well as, acquiring the next one, it can be kind of hard to manage effectively as a solo entrepreneur. How do you find the time or what do you do to kind of keep everything moving?
Yeah, so I mean, this is my full-time gig. So like all my time is pretty much just spent on real estate. Lucky for me, it's also my hobby. So pretty much all my waking hours, I'm just like looking at properties and being like, ooh, what are we gonna do here? What color are we gonna paint this wall? So but I mean, I'm also pretty vertically integrated other than just rentals. I also have my own brokerage with a couple agents under me and I also flip houses. So deals that I come across that may not necessarily work for seller financing, I have a lot of other avenues that I could still potentially make a deal with the seller, whether I buy it with hard money and flip it, or I mean, generally what I actually use is private money since I don't really like to use banks. But I also am a broker, so if they're really looking for retail, they have a mortgage, I can't really make a deal with them that works for me. I can still list it and get a commission out of it too. So
Yeah.
it's been really helpful to be able to offer lots of different kind of solutions to sellers.
Now you mentioned that you need to start hiring, something about growing the business here. Um, what roles do you envision outsourcing and what things are you looking for maybe internally in state that, when you're looking for potential team members, what sort of qualities are you seeking?
So I'm really more of like a big picture thinker, and I am not good at like the little details. Like I constantly have things slipping through the cracks. Like, oops, this electric bill didn't get paid last month because I forgot about it. So I just need someone that is going to like organize all of like the little details within my business to make sure that things keep running smoothly and I'm able to like continue growing my business and focus on the big picture without worrying about like every little problem that comes up every day, because right now I'm the one taking care of everything.
So with that in mind, the big picture is always great to be focused on. That's where growth comes in. How does raising capital and using other people's money play into your growth and where you're looking to go?
Yeah, so I have a couple private lenders that I work with closely. Honestly, I don't do all that much capital raising. I have a few lines of credit that have definitely been very helpful and have helped me take my business to the next level. That was honestly something that kind of opened a whole new door for me, was understanding that I could get business lines of credit now that I've been in
Mhm.
business for a couple of years and I have an established LLC. They don't so much look at me personally, since my personal income and my taxes are negative every year because of all the deductions I take. But because I have an established LLC and a business track record, now I'm able to get lines of credit for my business rather than for me personally. And that is additional money that I can tap into that I can then use for down payments or hard money type situations for flips and whatnot. So it's kind of just extra capital that I'm able to tap into.
Yeah, a lot of real estate investors aren't really on that path yet, but it seems to be evolving where hard money lending is secondary to like business lines of credit, growing those business lines of credit and getting that relatively easier, I would say easier approval to get money from a business line of credit than it is to, go and plead your case to a hard money lender. Oh, this is a good deal. You should lend on this thing. And, oh, you don't agree? Business line of credit. So, um,
Exactly.
could you walk us through your biggest success in real estate investing? What'd you learn along the way?
Honestly, my biggest success was probably my first property I ever bought. That one was a home run and have just been chasing the dragon ever since. So, like I said, that first guy that I reached out to is now one of my best private lenders. The house that I went out to see that was what he was advertising was this little two-bedroom house in a town like 40 minutes away that was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it had this old couple in there as tenants who you can't raise the rent because you feel bad for them. The house was full of cigarette smoke, like you couldn't even breathe in there, and they're just gonna like be in there until they die. So I mean, I knew that wasn't gonna work, but I still wanted to make that connection. And one of the other properties that he was also selling at the time was a 4-bedroom house that was right outside the local like big state university that's like
Mm.
half an hour away from my house. And I knew that student rentals are really lucrative. I have a couple of friends who were also doing student rentals at the time. So I went to go see this house and it looked perfect. This was exactly what I was looking for my first property. So we had ended up coming to I think a 240 sales price, and he was willing to take $20,000 down, which was all the money I had at the time. That was literally every penny, plus I maxed out my
like
credit card
8%,
to buy this house.
Yeah.
And at the time, this was, let's see, I think this was February 2019 that we actually closed. So also a month before COVID hit. So really good timing there. And he wanted 6.5% interest when interest rates were like high threes, low fours. So I was just like, what is this guy thinking? Like that was crazy to me. Like, he wanted 6.5%. But eventually, like, I mean, I tried to negotiate and he was just like, no, these are my terms.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up saying yes. And I'm very glad in retrospect that I did, because I mean, I wasn't super familiar at the time with really what I was getting myself into, but looking back at it, that was a fantastic deal and a no-brainer. But I was, I was kind of nervous and hesitant for my first deal, and I was like, "Oh, this is a really high interest rate. I don't know if this is a great idea." But at the time, I think my payment was $2,100 on a 20-year amortization schedule. I put $20,000 down, and with how much the value had just grown during COVID and how much equity I was able to build up, I was able to refinance, I think about 2 years later, without bringing any money to the table, got my rate lowered to 3.5 and my payment down to 1,500. And when I first bought it and my payment was 2,100, my income was 2,600. There were some boys living in there. They were gross. There was like moldy puke all over the walls. So we got them out that summer, painted it, cleaned it up, got some nice college girls in there. They were paying 3,200, and now I just got a lease signed for 3,800 for this house. So
Wow.
now I'm making over $2,000 a month, because 4 years ago I decided to take this risk and put every penny I had into it, and then refinance, no money out of pocket, and now have made my down payment back probably 10 times over.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of seller finance, is like people are really worried about, the future. But with seller finance, you can buy a part of the future for not that much money. That's not even
Exactly.
10% down. But you got to take the
Mm-hmm.
terms, right? A terms is something you really can't negotiate. So if it works, if the terms work and you think you can make it even net, net zero, then there's probably, something to do there. Now, when you look at, someone who's like getting started in real estate, um, what advice would you have for someone who's, getting started but facing kind of some of the similar challenges that you had when you got started?
Yeah, I would say definitely just try to get as creative as you possibly can and think outside the box. If you come across a deal that maybe isn't working out great, but it's been on the market for a while, like it's been sitting, clearly something's wrong with it, try to figure out what's wrong with it. Try to get creative in some way, see what the sellers need. Maybe they're not always after a sales price. Maybe there's something else in their lives, like what's going on that they're selling their house. Try to identify what their pain point is and what you can do about it, because they're not always after like the highest sales price they can get. Sometimes they need help with something else that you would never know unless you ask. So just
Mhm.
try to get to know the seller and get creative about any deal that you're looking at, and see how you can help them in a way that maybe anyone else who has looked at this deal can't.
Awesome. So you've got the rental properties, making some money, you got some flips and the brokerage activities. Do you have a preference among these? Like, is one more exciting than the other, or do they all kind of serve your overall strategy?
I mean, definitely my favorite is the rentals. That's what I got into real estate for. I've always been all about the long-term buy and hold. I really just do the flips to fund buying more rentals, and the brokerage just kind of goes hand in hand. I really just have the brokerage to list my flips and whatnot. I don't do all that much marketing. It's really just people who come to me that I'm able to offer a solution, and just really for listing and buying my own properties is what I have my license for.
Yeah, to kind of save fees and get access to the system. So with with what you're doing with real estate and the business line of credits, is that going to be enough? Or are you going to have to start reaching out with the goals that you have? Are you going to have to start raising capital, at least to some degree, in the next year or two? What does that look like?
I mean, I don't know what the future holds. I am interested in larger deals. I haven't really dipped my toe into that all that much. Right now, my biggest property is a 6-unit building, but I mean, I think everyone was looking for the larger multifamily. Like, oh, there's a very
Yeah.
big pool of investors. I think that kind of like the logical first step into real estate investing is a small multifamily. That's the most accessible thing to everyone. That's kind of the tier I'm in now as well. So I think there's a lot of people out there who have been buying duplexes, triplexes for many years and feel like they're ready for that like 10 unit, 12 unit, 18 unit building. But I think there are just a lot more buyers or hopeful buyers for that kind of pool of
Mhm.
properties, and there really are properties for sale. So, I mean, I would be interested in getting into that. And I think if I did, then I would really need to raise money. But like I said, I don't know what the future holds. I'm not like actively marketing towards that, but I think that is eventually my end goal, is to start trying to get into some bigger properties like that.
Nice. Yeah, it seems to be, when I got started, like 2015, multifamily was a thing that people kind of did later. But it seems now, if you're on Instagram or Facebook, I don't know, maybe I just search these things up and that's why I get the ads. But it seems like everyone's like jumping right into multifamily right off the get-go. And I don't know if that's like a great strategy, but having the right coaching, I think you can make it go. Have you taken any sort of programs or training to kind of help you grow your business?
I have not. I'm kind of just like self-educated. I just kind of watch YouTube videos and just read books, read articles online, and that's kind of how I've been educating myself. I just feel like there's so much free information out there that I don't feel the need to pay like thousands of dollars for courses that I could probably just spend like a few hours looking into like these niche things that I am specifically looking for answers on.
Mhm. I always say that there's no necessary, like there's no information that's necessarily new in this business. It's the accountability and the implementation that people really need. Some people aren't necessarily self-starters, or they don't know where to look or where to start. So they just need a little fire lit under them to really apply the information. So it's good. I think you've got the application of information down. So if people want to connect with you, they want to find out more, what should they do? How do they find you?
So I am on Instagram as of recently. I've been trying to ramp up my social media presence. So my name on Instagram is Sasha Invest. Sasha is Sasha. Apparently that throws people. So Sasha Invests. If anyone wants to connect, I am happy to bounce off ideas, give advice. So feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
No problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.